And another one. How's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And half a decade after Skyrim's release, the game still remains pretty relevant. And we owe a lot of that to the Elder Scrolls V's massive modding scene, which only seems to be expanding with more ambitious projects and releases every year. From DLC-sized expansions like Beyond Skyrim Bruma, to simpler projects that retexture certain rugs. There's no shortage of wonders that have been created by the community. But within such a vast library of content, every now and then there are some real gems that can go unnoticed, or at very least not get the attention that they seem to deserve. So today we push to recognize just some of those works, as we take another look at 5 criminally underrated mods in the Elder Scrolls V. Before we begin, do keep in mind, all mods on this list are available on both versions of Skyrim on PC, as well as on the Xbox One. But without further ado, let's do further. Starting off, we have what is actually the most popular mod on this list. Artifacts the Breton Paladin by Family Frank. This is a mod that does everything I wish Creation Club content would do. Artifacts Breton Paladin introduces a new full set of armor, called Paladin Armor, and accompanying weapons, all inspired by the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion's Knights of the Nine DLC, but also meshed with the Elder Scrolls Online's Breton armor concept art to create something truly memorable and unique. Everything about this mod just screams high quality to me. All the items added in are available in both 2 and 4K resolutions, and use custom textures and models that look breathtaking. The Paladin armor and shield you're given has some room for customization too, with 2 different helmets to choose from, and an alternative darker color scheme that you can apply from a workbench. The weapons added by the mod, a warhammer known as Skullbreaker that players of ESO will recognize, as well as Chrysamir, an ancient sword seen numerous times in previous Elder Scrolls games, and in the Creation Club, are both available in one- and two-handed variants to choose from. I personally went for the one-handed option more often, because it allows me to stare at the Paladin's shield, but that's just me. Additionally, all items added in by this mod, from the gloves to the swords, have custom lore-friendly enchantments that really do make them feel rather unique, though I don't think we have the time to go over all of them. From a raw stats perspective, everything's very high, better than Dragonbone. This is definitely a set meant for late game play. In order to acquire all this gear though, you'll have to complete the mod's custom quest, which sends you on a journey to pray at a shrine for every god in the game, and even adds in a few custom shrines for good measure. Once that's done, you'll have a short series of puzzles awaiting for you to complete before you can unlock everything. Overall, Artifacts the Breton Paladin is pretty much everything I could ask for out of an armor mod, and then some. Next on our list is a mod that's a lot smaller in the grand scheme of what it tries to accomplish, but after enabling it, I don't think I'm going back. Shields of the Holds by John Rose 81 solves a simple, minor grievance many of us may have. Traveling through Skyrim, you may notice it seems like guards repaint their shields on a weekly basis. Despite presumably years of wear and trial in combat, everyone's shields and equipment seem to be far too pristine for their environment. Well, Shields of the Holds replaces the unconvincing shields of the game's various hold guards with more realistic, worn-down models that also boast considerably higher resolution textures. It may not seem like much at first, but the more believable appearances coupled with the more modern pixels does really make a difference. Stats are unaffected, making the changes entirely cosmetic. However, when you consider just how often you're looking at guards, the improvement becomes more obvious than subtle. Coming in at number 3, Skyrim is a medieval fantasy set in a land with hardy people who value honor and skill in battle. So it seems reasonable that such a culture would have a healthy respect for duels and combat between 2 consenting adults. It seems like a great way of passing the time or settling a dispute, depending on how mad you are. Alas, typically, if you decide you feel like fighting an NPC, you either need to hold yourself back, or end up getting pursued by local law enforcement for murdering someone to death. There is no in-between. Well, thankfully, Drawl, a dueling mod by Pistachio Raptor, has us covered. Drawl allows the player to challenge any NPC into a one-on-one combat duel thanks to a new shout, automatically given to you. Once your opponent has agreed, the two of you may battle it out without worrying about getting a bounty placed on you, or having any non-invited characters jump in. NPCs you decide to challenge will only accept if they have a negative opinion of you, though simply challenging a character will cause your relationship to deteriorate anyway, so you can just keep asking until they break down. Duels themselves are pretty interesting, as you can choose to keep the fight clean with just hand-to-hand combat, Or, if you want, you may unsheath the weapon early on, and your opponent will do the same. Duels can end in a couple of ways. You can simply kill your opponent. If this happens, you still will not receive a bounty, or you can beat them into going unconscious. Once your enemy is knocked out, or dead, you can freely loot their inventory, without it being considered stealing, giving you a chance to collect a bit of a reward. Do make note, even otherwise essential NPCs can be permanently killed in duels, so pick your fights carefully. It's very easily to accidentally kill someone with this mod, thanks to the way kill moves work, so just be careful. Certain foes also fight differently from others. Less honorable characters, such as Nazim, may pull out a weapon mid-fight if they get desperate, or flat out run away, whereas honorable Nords will hold fast until the very end. Lastly, the mod also introduces a sparring system, which functions very similar to duels, except it's meant to be used with friends and NPCs you have a good relationship with. Sparring won't result in death, nor any hard feelings, but you won't be able to loot their bodies. Getting close to the end here at number 4, I wanted to use this opportunity to show off a mod that came out very recently, and I think is going to get much more popular as time passes. Project AHO by Ham Projects is a pretty major DLC-sized quest mod. Over 3 years in the making, AHO barely came out on March 28th, 2018, and my god is it not something that you should try immediately. Project AHO takes you to the majestic underground city of Sadrith Kagran. I've heard that name hundreds of times and I'm still sure I mispronounced it. An old Dwemer ruin under Skyrim that has since secretly been colonized by the Dark Elves of House Telvanni. It's now being used by the faction as a base of sorts for future planned expansions. You arrive here after being captured by a few slavers, who sell you off at an auction to a local scientist. Thankfully, the scientist was just looking for another assistant, and is nicer to you than all the other people that he owns. Eventually, you do get your freedom, as you would expect. I mean, it would be pretty anticlimactic if that was the entire game, just you running around picking things up for that guy's and clipping his nails. But you may want to stick around, as Sadrith Kagran has a few secrets worth looking into. But I'm not going to spoil anything. Much like the Forgotten City, a mod released a few years ago that you've probably heard of, if not played, Project AHO doesn't try and win you over with a huge playable area. Though, altogether it is pretty big, about the size of a Skyrim hold. Instead, Project AHO's real strength is what it's able to do with that space, and its story and cast of characters, who are all fully voiced. The world isn't gigantic, but it's rich, and the city has this unmatched sense of exoticness and just feels alive. Every NPC for you to meet and talk to seems to have their own story to tell, and you get to forge your own. Now at this point, you may be wondering, why haven't you heard of this mod sooner? Well, it seems as though the team has largely been quiet on social media until now. And many of the modders also appear to be Russian, and just don't have as big of a reputation or presence within the community as many others. Regardless, Project AHO is in my opinion the best mod we've seen so far in 2018, and is definitely worth the download. And finally, last on this list, ending on a more tame note, in the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, it wasn't uncommon to catch a legionnaire or guard patrolling the province on horseback. Unfortunately, in Skyrim, this isn't the case. For whatever reason, the people of Skyrim seem to avoid horses like the plague, and very few NPCs actually take to using a mount, which doesn't make much sense considering how abundant the animals are, and the fact that they can so easily scale Skyrim's pesky mountains. Suffice it to say, I was disappointed. Well, Hold Riders by Kvatch Count spawns in mounted guards for each of Skyrim's holds that actively patrol and travel between settlements, occupied mines, occupied guard towers, and occupied ruins. These guards will be able to rest the player and will periodically dismount to engage in combat whenever necessary, or just stretch their legs. At least, that's what I choose to believe. To be honest, the change introduced by this mod isn't anything major. You can probably go a few hours without noticing its effects. And I think most of my appreciation is derived primarily from nostalgia from Oblivion. But despite my self-awareness, I still think Hold Riders is a mod worth checking out and downloading, even if you haven't played Oblivion. It just seems to make realistic sense. But with that, we're going to wrap up. Which of these mods on this list was your personal favorite? And what mods do you know of that you think deserve a lot more attention than they're getting? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.